She called me by name before I even sat down. The problem was I'd never seen her before, and I never told her who I was. This happened during my sophomore year of high school. I wasn't the kind of kid who usually noticed much in class, but something about that day stuck with me immediately. It was third period English, and when I walked in, our usual teacher, Mr. Hanley, wasn't there. Instead, there was a woman I'd never seen before, mid-40s, pale, dark, shoulder-length hair, wearing a gray dress that looked a little out of style, like something from a thrift store. She stood perfectly still at the front of the class, hands folded. As I walked in and took my seat, she looked right at me and said, "Good morning, Derek." That threw me. I hadn't said anything. No one had introduced me, and she said it in this slow, almost deliberate voice, like she was testing the name on her tongue. It made my skin crawl a little. I looked around to see if anyone else thought that was weird, but everyone was half asleep or on their phones. I figured maybe she'd glanced at the attendance sheet or something. Then she started class, but she didn't take attendance. She didn't tell us her name. She didn't give us any work. Instead, she walked slowly up and down the rows of desks and asked each of us a question. Not about English, not about the book we were reading. These were weird questions. "Steamy," she asked, "have you ever dreamed of drowning? Marcus, if someone followed you home, would you know it?" Each time, the kid just laughed nervously or gave some confused answer, and she'd smile, thank them, and move on. When she got to me, she didn't ask a question. She just leaned down a little, looked me dead in the eyes, and whispered, "You were awake at 2:17 last night." Why, I swear to God, she was right. I had woken up last night at exactly 2:17 a.m. I remember checking the time because I thought I heard footsteps outside my window. I chalked it up to a dream. But she couldn't have known that. I didn't answer her. I just stared, and she smiled wide and weirdly toothy, then moved on like nothing happened. The rest of the period went by painfully slow. No assignments, no explanations, just quiet, creepy pacing and those bizarre questions. The room felt wrong, like the air was too still, too thick. The kind of silence that makes you feel like something should be making noise, but isn't. When the bell rang, she stood by the door and said goodbye to each of us by name. Every single person. No attendance sheet, no introductions. She just knew. I walked straight to the main office. Mr. Hanley was supposed to be out all week. Everyone knew that, but I asked anyway. "Hey," I said to the secretary, "do you know who the sub is for Mr. Hanley's class today?" She looked at her computer, frowned, clicked around a bit. "There's no one listed," she said. "Mr. Hanley didn't request a sub." I felt my blood go cold. "Then, who's in there now?" She looked confused. "Nobody. The class was marked unattended this morning. They should have been sent to the library." I didn't say anything. I just nodded and left. The rest of the day, I was on edge. Every creak of the hallway, every shadow outside a window was jumpy. I even asked a few classmates later what they thought of the sub. Most of them brushed it off, said she was kind of weird, but nobody else seemed bothered. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking the clock, waiting to see if I'd wake up at 2:17 again. At 2:17 exactly, my phone buzzed. I hadn't set an alarm. It was a text from an unknown number. Key just said, "Still awake, Derek." I didn't respond. Keyed. I couldn't. I turned my phone off, threw it across the room, and laid in bed, staring at the ceiling for the rest of the night. The next morning at school, I walked past Mr. Hanley's classroom. The door was closed. The lights were off. No one was inside. I asked around. No one had seen the sub again. The secretary told me she'd escalated the situation. Okay, but when the district checked, they had no record of any woman matching the description working as a substitute. No ID badge was ever signed out. No security footage showed her entering the building. She just wasn't there. I never saw her again, but about 2 weeks later, I got another text. One didn't say anything, just a photo. It was my bedroom window, taken from outside, at night. And in the faint reflection of the glass, swear I saw her face. She always waited for me in room 209 after school. It's the same classroom where they found her body last spring. Started about a month into the school year, my senior year. I was failing chemistry bad. No matter how much I studied, it just didn't stick. I was heading toward summer school, or worse, not graduating. One Friday afternoon, I stayed behind in the science wing, debating whether to ask my current teacher for extra help. That's when I heard someone call my name, softly, from room 209. When I stepped inside, the lights were already on. Sitting at the desk was a woman I didn't recognize right away. She looked like she was in her late 40s, sharp features, hair pinned back, wire-rimmed glasses. "You must be Alex," she said. "Come in. I've been waiting to help you." I stood there for a second, confused, but she smiled in this warm, almost motherly way, and something about her voice made me relax. I sat down. That first session was strange. It's not because of what she said, it actually helped a lot, but because the room felt frozen in time. There was a chalkboard instead of a whiteboard. The posters were faded and peeling. A dusty overhead projector sat in the corner, like no one had touched it in years. Still, I left that day feeling like, for the first time, I actually understood the material. So I went back the next week, and the one after that. Every Friday, same time, same quiet greeting. Same cold room that smelled like old books and something faintly metallic, like blood or rust. She never told me her name, but one day I asked, nervously. She smiled and said, "Just call me Ms. Carter. That's what they used to call me." Used to, that caught me off guard, but I didn't push it. I was just grateful to be passing my quizzes now. Then one afternoon, about a month in, something weird happened. I mentioned her to my actual chemistry teacher, just casually, saying how the tutoring had helped. She looked confused. "Who's been tutoring you, Miss Carter?" I said. "She meets me after school in 209. Her face went pale. "Alex, room 209 hasn't been used since last year." I laughed, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. She pulled open her desk drawer, took out a folded newspaper clipping, and handed it to me. Local high school mourns sudden death of beloved teacher. The photos showed the same woman, same sharp features, same glasses. Miss Rebecca Carter, age 48. She had died of a brain aneurysm in her classroom, room 209. I thought it had to be some mistake, some prank even. But the article was dated 5 months before school started. I told my teacher it had to be someone else. She didn't argue, looked at me with this deep pity. She told me to go home early. That night, I went back to the school. I needed to prove it to myself that there was someone there, flesh and blood, playing some elaborate joke. Maybe a long-term sub who didn't update her ID. Something. The building was mostly dark by the time I got in. I used the side door near the gym students, knew it didn't always lock properly. When I got to room 209, the hallway lights flickered. My footsteps echoed too loud in the silence. The door was ajar, and the light inside was on. I pushed it open. The same dusty projector was there, same worn-out periodic table, same desk, and she was sitting in her usual spot, smiling back already. She asked. I stared at her, throat dry. "You're not real," I whispered. Her smile faded. "Not real," she repeated. "Is that what they told you?" She stood up slowly. The air in the room grew icy, like someone had opened a freezer. My breath came out in white puffs. "You were doing so well, Alex," she said, stepping closer. Her voice sounded strained now, stretched. "Wrong. I helped you. I gave you time. I gave you answers." I stepped back toward the door, hand reaching behind me for the knob. "I thought you wanted to pass," she said, face twitching in a way that didn't look human anymore. Then her voice dropped into something else. Not a whisper, not a shout, just this deep, vibrating sound that seemed to come from inside the walls. But you never said anything about leaving me. The door slammed shut behind me. I don't remember how I got out. One moment, I was pressing myself against the cold floor, trying to breathe. In the next, I was sprinting down the hallway toward the exit, heart slamming against my ribs. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe it? But I never went back to room 209 again. Even now, I avoid that wing entirely. I passed chemistry, somehow. Final grade, bumped up just enough. But sometimes, when I'm alone and it's quiet, I hear chalk scraping on a blackboard. And once, I got an email from a Rag Carter 209 at address. No subject. It's just one line in the message. You forgot your last assignment. I don't remember standing for that photo, but there I was staring at myself in the yearbook, mid-step in an empty hallway, looking directly at the camera, with my eyes wide open in fear. This happened during my senior year of high school. Wasn't anyone special, just the kind of student who kept his head down, got decent grades, and coasted through without drawing too much attention. I wasn't into clubs, never had my picture in the school paper, and to be honest, I barely noticed yearbook day when it came. It was the last week of school, and teachers were half checking out already. It's handing out yearbooks during class instead of bothering with actual work. I remember flipping through mine during English first, out of boredom, then gradually with more interest. The usual stuff was all there. Sports pages, goofy candid shots, group photos, and then I hit the student life section. That's when I saw it. A full-page photo near the bottom corner. It showed a stretch of the east wing hallway, one of the older, rarely used sections of the school. I recognized the setting instantly because I walked through it most mornings to avoid the crowded main halls. The lighting in the picture was dim, yellowed, and grainy, like it had been taken at dusk or under failing fluorescent lights. But the part that froze me was me. I was in the center of the shot, mid-stride, like I'd been caught walking, but not posed. My mouth was slightly open, eyes wide and glassy, like I was startled, staring right into the lens. The weird thing is I had no memory of this. I never posed for it. I never saw anyone taking photos in that hall. And even stranger, it wasn't labeled. No caption, no photographer credit. Just there. I asked a couple of friends around me if they remembered the picture being taken. None of them did. One of them even joked, "Dude, you look freaked out. You okay in that?" Okay, laughed it off, but my skin crawled. I couldn't explain the feeling, but something about the picture felt off, like it had been taken without my knowing, or even without me being aware I was there at all. That night, I pulled the yearbook out again at home. I stared at the photo under my bedroom light, trying to spot any clue about when it was taken. What was I wearing? My jacket, the black one with the torn sleeve. I'd stopped wearing that back in March, which meant the photo had to be from earlier in the year. But why did it feel like I had never seen it before? Then I noticed something that made my stomach turn. In the reflection of a glass trophy case on the wall behind me, almost too faint to catch, was the outline of another figure, just barely visible, standing behind me. Tall, thin, pale. No details, just a silhouette. It wasn't there at first glance, but now I couldn't unsee it. I showed it to my mom the next morning, but under the kitchen light, the figure didn't appear as clearly. She thought I was being paranoid. "Probably just a smudge on the glass or something," she said. I didn't argue, but I knew what I saw. The next day at school, I went to the yearbook office. I asked if they had the original copy of the photo or a list of who submitted it. The girl working there looked confused. "That page was blank for weeks," she said. "We thought we had a misprint and were going to leave it empty. But then, one morning, the file was just there, like it had been uploaded overnight. No one took credit for it." She let me look at the file on her computer. Same photo, same hallway, same me, staring into the camera with that glassy, startled look. I zoomed in on the trophy case. The figure wasn't there. No reflection, no shadow, just empty glass. I left without saying anything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept the yearbook shut in my desk drawer, but I felt like it was watching me. I know how that sounds, but I kept hearing little noises like the rustling of pages, even though no one was touching it. Sometime after 2 a.m., I decided to check the hallway in the photo. My school was in T-Fars, just a 10-minute walk in. I had a spare key from volunteering with the AV club. Something told me I needed to be there, to see it for myself. The school was completely dark and dead quiet. My footsteps echoed unnaturally in the empty corridors. I walked to the east wing, holding my phone flashlight out in front of me. When I got to the spot from the photo, I stopped. The air felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. I looked around, same broken tile, same trophy case, same buzzing flicker from the old light overhead. Then my phone flickered. The flashlight blinked out and the screen froze. For a second, everything went black. Then, just behind me, I heard it. A camera shutter, not a phone click, an old-styled shutter snick, like from a film camera. I spun around. Nothing, but I felt it. Someone had just taken my picture. Kay ran, full sprint out of that hallway, out the building. Didn't stop until I got home. The next morning, I opened the yearbook again. The photo had changed. Same hallway, same lighting, but this time it wasn't mid-step anymore. Just standing there, still, straight-backed, arms at my sides, eyes locked directly onto the lens. And behind me, clear as day, now stood that same tall, pale figure. Closer than before, one hand on my shoulder. I closed the book and shoved it in the back of my closet. I never opened it again. She never talked to anyone, never made eye contact, but every morning she walked straight to the same desk, the one no one else would ever sit in. I started noticing her during second period history, about 2 weeks into the semester. She was new, quiet, pale, always wore the same faded denim jacket with little embroidered stars on the sleeves. The teacher introduced her as Mara, but no one really spoke to her, and she didn't seem interested in speaking back. She always came in early, always, and sat in the far left seat in the back row. Same desk, every single day. At first, I thought nothing of it. People are creatures of habit. We sat near the door so I could sneak out fast. But one day, I came in late. All the seats were taken except for one hers. Mara wasn't in class. I hesitated, but I needed to sit somewhere, so I made my way to the back corner and slid into the desk. Instantly, I felt cold. Okay, not like the room was chilly cold, deep in my bones. I could see my breath. My skin prickled like static. Then I heard the door creak. It was Mara. She walked in slowly, like she was trying not to draw attention, but her eyes locked onto mine immediately. And not in a normal way, was like she knew I had done something wrong. C didn't say a word. She just stood there, frozen, until our teacher awkwardly gestured to an empty desk up front. "Why don't you take that seat today, Mara?" Still silent, she walked stiffly to the front, sat down, and stared straight ahead for the entire period. "Atia." I tried not to look at her. "Atia." But every time I glanced over, she was already looking at me. After class, I apologized. Or I tried to. I caught up to her in the hallway and said, "Hey, sorry for taking your seat earlier." She just blinked at me. Then she said, softly, "It's not mine." Before I could ask what she meant, she turned and disappeared into the crowd. The next day, she was back in the same desk like nothing had happened. I decided to ignore it. People have their quirks, but one afternoon, my friend Tyler stayed after class to grab a charger he'd left behind. When I caught up to him later, he looked ... off, pale, like he'd seen something bad. "You're not going to believe this," he said, "but there's a plaque under Mara's desk." "A plaque?" I asked. He nodded. One of those little memorial things, screwed into the wood underneath. I saw it when I dropped my charger and ducked under to grab it. What did it say? He looked at me for a long time before answering. Gate. In loving memory of Mara Lee Carter, June 8, 2006, October 3rd, 2021. My blood ran cold. That was this Mara's exact name and her birthday. She just turned 17, but the date of death, that was 2 years ago. At first, I thought maybe it was a prank, some weird coincidence, but when I got home that night, I looked it up. There was an article from the local paper. Mara Lee Carter, 15, passed away after a car accident on her way home from school. She was a sophomore at East Ridge High, survived by her parents and twin brother, Mark. East Ridge, my school, same history classroom, the same seat. She died in October. Now, 2 years later, she was back, sitting in the same desk, every day, quiet, watching. I didn't go to school the next day, or the day after that. When I finally came back, she was gone. The teacher said Mara had transferred. No explanation. It's gone, like she was never there. But the desk, still empty. No one sat in it since. Even when we were packed for a quiz day and people were scrambling for seats, no one touched that desk, And sometimes, if you come in early, you'll find it pulled out, just slightly, like someone was sitting there, waiting. A few weeks ago, I stayed late for a club meeting and passed by the history room on my way out. The lights were off. But in the darkness, I swear, I saw her jacket hanging over the back of the chair, denim, embroidered stars on the sleeves. And scratched faintly into the top of the desk was a message. It's barely visible unless the light hit it just right. I was here first.